And our goal is to help you really uncover these limiting beliefs, overcome these obstacles, and really recognize what fear is and how do we navigate fear to overcome fear.
What if growth is about trajectory and not about your present position in life? Growth as a direction and not a destination. What if it is the path to authentic living? Welcome to the most exciting adventure of your life. Welcome to a new way of living, and welcome to the Fierce Planet Adventures podcast.
Hi, I'm Casey.
And I'm Andy. And we're on a mission to inspire and guide 1 million people to live a life of purpose, passion, and self-mastery, leveraging the 5 mountains of cutting-edge human development to build extreme mental fitness.
Our guest today is Topaz Navarro. Topaz is a U.S. Army veteran, mental health advocate, mental fitness coach, and father. His military career spans 25 years, 20 years in the special operations community with several operational deployments to the Middle East and Africa. By trade and training, Topaz is a mental fitness coach, life coach, receiving his life coaching certification from New Skills Academy in May of 2021. Topaz currently serves on the National Alliance on Mental Illness, Howard County Board of Directors, the National Association for Black Veterans, Western MD, and is a facilitator for the NAMI Connections Veterans Support Group, a free peer-to-peer support group for veterans living with mental illness. He's the founder and executive director of Workplay Obsession All In Foundation, a mental health nonprofit organization that leverages recreational activities to address and heal the wounds of trauma. The nonprofit serves as both a peer support group and a post-service community for its members to bond over their shared experiences: home, work, play, obsession. Finally, Topaz is the owner of Escape Velocity Academy, a for-profit coaching business that works specifically with minority male military veterans between the ages of 35 and 50 who suffer from a loss of community and the fear and uncertainty resulting from the military separation. At Escape Velocity Academy, the message is that growth is a direction, not a destination, and the path to authentic happiness is all about trajectory. Once you establish upward trajectory, all it takes is patience. The escape velocity required to maintain that trajectory is fueled within. Welcome, Topaz.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Wow, that's a long bio there. So thank you. I appreciate you for getting all that out there.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate you guys having me on today. This is awesome.
Thank you for taking the time. So much going on, as you were saying, but we kind of like to break the ice with asking what you're most excited about in your life right now.
Wow, I have a few things. That's a really great question, right? So I'm actually in the process of retiring from the military. So I'll be retired in February of 2022 after 25 years. Wow. So
amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. That's, as we call it, the 25-meter target. Well, actually, I guess Christmas will be the 25-meter target, right? Since we're like rolling up on December. But I'm getting through the holiday, right? But
yeah.
On a grander scale, yeah, retirement is first, making a successful separation from service, and really, figuring out how I can continue to serve, right? Because that's my ultimate goal, to leave everyone I meet 5% more inspired and motivated than before we met. Right. So for us, right, today, if we end this conversation and we're all in the same place 3 months from now that we are today, then we failed in this conversation. Yeah. Right. That's my mindset, where it's just one little nugget that we have to walk away with that's going to change our trajectory just that little bit. Right. We talked about upward trajectory. So whatever we need to maintain it or to make that little correction that gets us on that upward path, right? That gets us to Mars or wherever our impossible is, right? That's my impossible. My impossible is Mars. And one day I will be on the red planet. So
beautiful.
Oh, I love it.
Oh man, Topaz. So could you let us know, our listeners know about, what led you down the military path and then onto life coaching? Where did this path begin for you?
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting, right? And I tell this story because I really just discovered it. I thought in my mind that I joined the military on a whim, where I was at home with my parents. I was going to go to college on a academic / soccer scholarship, and I decided I wanted something different. And then I realized that my family has always served. Right, my grandfather rest in peace. He was a Korean War veteran. Purple Heart. He was shot during the Korean War. I have an uncle who was in the Marines, an aunt who retired from the Army after 20 plus years. My brother served. I have a cousin who served. My son is a West Point graduate who's serving now. And my ex-wife served. She fought in Iraq as well. She's a combat veteran. So it's just part of what we do, right? It's ingrained in there. And I didn't know it at the time, but I joined. I really enjoyed what I was doing. I met some really great people. And, one of the things that we kind of joke about is you join the military, and for a long time, people never got to do their job. Right. In a peacetime army or in a peacetime military, you don't get to do your job. You just train all the time.
Right.
But unfortunately, or fortunately, however you slice it, for us, we got trained and we got to do our job. Right. And when you start to do your job, you want to stay around. Unfortunately, on the flip side, that means, it's combat operations. But when that's what you find this passion for, right? If your flow state is kicking indoors with a team of 4 or 5 other people, Army life was good for years,
Yeah. Oh.
but so yeah, that's what kind of got me there, and that's what kept me there for a long time. You move up the ladder, you get into leadership positions, and sometimes in a career where autonomy is not really a part of the job, right? Because you're in a military machine, and we know that autonomy is one of the key factors for authentic happiness, right? Autonomy, competence, and relatedness. You start to lose some of that passion. And when you're, life coach, mental fitness coach, or any kind of coach where empathy is a big part of your career, I struggle with candor. That's been something I've dealt with for a long time. And you want to help people from that empathetic side of you, but in the military, you're like, no, man, we've got a job to do, and the job's got to be done. And the military didn't issue you a family. So if they wanted you to have a family, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, but that's
no
not
time for that.
yeah, there's no time for that. So I got to a point where I was like, okay, it's time to move on, and find out how I can continue to serve people in this new career.
Beautiful.
Long-winded answer.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So I'm curious, when you initially joined the Army, what was your MOS, or your service occupation?
Sure. Yeah. So interesting story. I joined the National Guard first. I joined the National Guard as a medic. So I was a medic in the National Guard in New Jersey. So I'm from New Jersey. And like I said earlier, when I came back from training in the National Guard, you go back home, right? You're at the call of the governor. We were essentially sandbagging the Delaware River is what we were good at, right? And I was riding an ambulance for a while. So I was doing first aid from my medical training in the military. And I realized I don't really like the sight of blood very much. So I decided that I needed to get a new MOS, right? So, and I wanted to go active duty at the time. I wanted to leave home. So the Army came back and they said, hey, the only job we have available right now is linguist. They're like, we'll send you to Defense Language Institute in Monterey. I didn't know where that was at the time, but fortunately it was a very nice place.
Other side of the country. Yeah.
Yeah. Defense Language Institute in Monterey, and you will go learn Russian. So that's what I did. So I became a linguist, and that's what I did the rest of my career.
Wow. So when you transitioned, or when you joined the special operations community, did you find that it was, you went from a very rigid structure of Army life to maybe a more loosely held structure? Probably isn't the right terminology, but I've heard that, the transition from the regular military into the special operations community can be a bit challenging because the structure changes.
No, that's a great question. And you're absolutely right. So I mentioned autonomy earlier, right? In the military sense, or in the general frame, you could say going from, I don't know what you want to call it, regular Army, if you want to call it that, or whatever you want to call it, into the special operations community, you gain a certain amount of autonomy that you do not have in the traditional Army unit, right?
Mhm.
If you're looked at to do something specific, right, and you're specially trained, you're specially assessed, you're specially recruited, there is a certain amount of um, autonomy you're given because you're supposed to be just a little step above, let's call it that, without being arrogant or something like that. But
Right.
a little bit more responsibility is given to you because you're giving more um, you're given more responsibility, so you're given a little bit more freedom, at the same time.
Yeah. So expectations are a bit different for the
Absolutely.
different.
So
Yeah.
and it's, people, who watch the movies, they think it's just about, long hair and beards and stuff like that. But it's a lot more. There's a lot more to it, right? A lot of the training that you're responsible for, you're just strictly responsible for getting it done. There's not somebody yelling at you and saying, "Hey, did you do this today? Did you do that today? Everyone, let's go stand in formation and make sure we're doing X, Y, Z today." It's You're responsible for getting these tasks done to standard, and you get them done. So that's also a part of that difference, right? So some people, they join the military because they need that person yelling at them. They need that discipline and that structure, for them to get by, which is why I remember a long time ago, they were like, "Oh, join the Army or go to jail," right? Because you need discipline and structure in your life. But you make that shift over to that special operations community. It's like, "Hey man, we're not here to babysit you," right? You know what you're supposed to do. Get your task done.
Yeah.
And don't just meet the standard, but exceed it, because that's really why you're here. So
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is the ability to be extremely self-directed and focused, but also having the ability to shift into a team environment and integrate into that team.
When I think about energy and vitality, I think about a kid. They have the energy to play, run around, climb things. That energy that feels like you just can't contain yourself. It's the stuff we've always wished they could just bottle up and sell to us, right? Well, this company's found a way to do just that. Amari's Happy Juice Pack. Mood, motivation, energy, things our bodies can naturally produce when both our guts and our brains are happy and communicating. And we can actually improve that process of communication across the axis of the gut and the brain. This is cutting edge science. This is game changing information. This is where science meets soul. This is Amari. And we're helping people feel better naturally. Boost your serotonin and GABA. Balance your neurotransmitters. Nourish your gut. The things that make you want to do. Start feeling better the natural way. Check out the links in the show notes for discounts and more information.
absolutely. And that's the bigger piece, right? So if you look at they have great books. The Assessment of Men is one of the great older books that they look at for how these special operations programs are built, right? And if you can't be a great team member, right, you can have all the individual skills, but you're not gonna make it, right? No one's going to want to play with you, right? If you can't play well with others. So, and that's the worst part, is because you find some people that are great at what they do, but no one wants to do it with them because
Yeah.
whether they can't share, and there could be other things, right? They don't know how to clean up after themselves. They think that they're too good to clean up after themselves, or that's just one way of kind of laying it out. But
Yeah.
have to be a good team player.
Yeah, people come in with different different backgrounds, different life experiences, and so it's not all just the same thought process going on, but then they have to integrate into that environment and become part of the team. I hear you. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Tell us a little bit about the escape velocity.
Yeah.
What
I love
started
it.
that?
Yeah. So escape velocity, you hit the nail on the head during the intro. Escape velocity is fueled within, so it's similar. So you guys have, I think, five pillars, right? As well, 5 mountains. So I laughed at that, not laughed in a malicious way, but I was like, "Oh, I have 5 pillars too," So, so escape velocity is fueled within. So that's intrinsic motivation, intelligence and lifelong learning, inspiration, both breath work for grounding and presence, but inspiring others as well. So we have two ways for inspiration: investing in yourself so you can invest in others. And then my favorite one is interpersonal relationships, because relatedness is key, and fellowship keeps us alive. So those are our 5 pillars for escape velocity. And actually just got our logo created today, but similar to mountains, right? Which is why another reason why I really your mission and what you guys do really resonates with me is you'll see whenever I start pushing the logo out is we have 2 mountains on ours. And I talk about the book by David Brooks, The Second Mountain, right? And we talk about the first mountain is resume virtues, right? Where we look at our jobs, promotions, maybe a family, extrinsic motivational factors, right? Fame and fortune and all these other things. That's the first mountain, right? That's the first mountain. And we look at that. The military is great for that because you can gain all of those things in the military, right? You can become really good at your job. You can gain promotions, all that stuff. But then you separate from service and you come down off of this first mountain into what I call the valley of despair, right? You lose your relatedness, you lose your team, you lose a certain sense of competence because you're going from the military world to the civilian world. And now you've got to navigate this second mountain, right? And how do we, one, establish upward trajectory? And where are we really going? What is that? Our second mountain virtue, right? Second mountain virtues are eulogy virtues. They are, what is that legacy I leave behind? Because legacy is greater than currency, right? So we have to figure out, what is this second mountain that we're aiming towards? What is this MTP, right? What is my massively transformative purpose right now?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where escape velocity is really born, right? Was born. What is escape velocity, and how do I get there? And our goal is to help you really uncover these limiting beliefs, overcome these obstacles, and really recognize what fear is and how do we navigate fear to overcome fear, because we all know fear is never going away, right? It is what keeps us alive, right? So how do we navigate it? How do we use it and to reach that escape velocity and to move closer every day towards our MTP, you know?
Oh, beautiful. You know, one of the things that you mentioned there was purpose. Why is it so important for somebody to deeply establish their purpose? And we're talking here, I'm guessing here, outside of just, making a living and paying the bills, why is that so important?
Yeah, I think the key piece is, as we look at that, the average person, right, they haven't really identified their purpose. And it's like you said, it's not their job, right? Somebody will be like, oh yeah, I work for so-and-so. Okay, that's great. That's your career. That's what you do to put food on your table. But is that really your purpose?
Mm-hmm.
And the average person has never really sat down to think about it, but what really lights you up every day? I can go out and talk to 10 people, right? And say, okay, they seem to be motivated, inspired, and moving forward towards something they've always wanted to do, right? That is going to light me up for the day. Did I make any money off of that? No. Did I need to? No, because that is my purpose. I truly feel that is my purpose, is to help people move a little bit closer to the person they really want to be. So it all goes back, right, to the passion cycle, right? And walking through those steps. And I do that with people. That is part of our program, is helping people walk through that process and truly identify something that lights them up. Where does that intersect with a community problem or a global world problem? And then when you identify that, that's where we start to set our goals towards helping people in that domain. So to me, that's purpose, right? And I think once people can kind of sit down and figure out where they sit in that journey, I think there'll be a lot more joy, right, in the world, as opposed to the fleeting happiness that everyone chases on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, right. That's so important. The other word that's resonated with me, or it's jumped out for me, is the big F word, right? Fear. What, I think people think it's a negative word, a dirty word, or a word that, I've got no fear. And that's just not a realistic mindset. So how would you go about initially moving somebody from that fear state, or being able to recognize their fear, what it truly is, and then maybe doing something about it?
Yeah. I like to start with the reframe, right? I reframe fear to excitement. Like that's number one, right? It's like, I mean, unless you're in a life or death situation, then that's truly fear, which should be harnessed
Yes.
for something, right? Like if we're talking a business meeting or presentation or something like that, we have to reframe that fear into excitement. I'm excited for this opportunity to do X, right? I have so much skill in this domain, or I have something that people are so interested in that I'm presented with this opportunity to share it. So now this is excitement. I should be, it's like, wait a minute, I already know this. That's why I'm here. Right. Like if somebody called you guys in, like if someone calls you in to sit on to give a presentation, it's like, wait a minute, you must be an expert on this. What are you afraid of? Right. You have the knowledge already. Just go out there and be you. Right. So it's
Yeah.
turning that fear into excitement. Right. I think people have a very difficult time reframing. And I don't think we do it often enough. And a lot of times now when I sit down with people, as I get better I'll say I get better at coaching, but really as I get better as a communicator, right? As a listener, I ask a lot more questions now. And I think that's the other thing is people will realize that it's fear when you continue to walk them through these questions and they get at the root of it, right? Being fear. But then it goes back to, okay, well, turn that into excitement or recognize the fear is not because of something you did or that you're doing. It's the fear on, if we're talking about relationships, it's the fear on the other person's side, something that they are dealing with inside that they're projecting onto you. You know, so those are the two big ones for me.
Nice. Nice. What, so the whole life coaching world or realm, you know, there's a lot of different programs out there and they all offer different experiences, different platforms. Why do you think that, you know, people need to have a life coach or
Oh yeah.
should look into getting a life coach?
Oh, I love that question. I love that because I like to fight mentors every day. If I see someone that says they have a mentor, I want to punch them in the face. No, I'm just kidding. I appreciate mentorship,
Metaphorically,
right?
that is.
Yes, yes. Right. So first I like to sit down with people and explore. And to be honest, you know, I explored this when I first started coaching and I explored it when I first joined the Flow Research Collective, right? Is truly identifying the differences between your coach, your mentor, your counselor, your therapist, your, you know, it goes on, right? And I try to tell people, and I probably stole this from someone, you know, all the greats have coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they run down the list of all these billionaires and millionaires that all have coaches. I say everyone needs a coach, not a mentor, right? A mentor is telling you they're using their experience and telling you this is how I did it and here's my example, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a mentor-mentee relationship, the mentor is the expert, period. And people never realize that. They've never heard that before. We're in a coaching relationship, the coachee is the expert. The coach is just there to ask questions, to elicit thought, and to walk them down a path so they realize that everything that they already have within. And until you explain that to someone, they will consistently refer back to a mentor, which mentors are great. I don't mind them, but you need someone there that's going to ask you the questions that are going to make you truly sit and think about why you are afraid or why you are doing X or why you feel a certain way. And mentors, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to ask those questions. They're going to say, well, this is why I did it. And this is what happened to me, which is great. But we all know that personality does not scale, right? What works for you may not work for me, right? We all have different experiences and we all have different expectations. A coach, right? We're trained and we say, hey, we want to be able to relate and understand your experiences and expectations so that we can ask the right questions. I think everyone needs a coach. I don't think everyone needs to pay a coach if they can't afford one, right?
Right.
But I think everyone needs someone who will listen non-judgmentally and ask thought-provoking questions that help you move forward. That's just, you know, that's my opinion, you know?
Yeah. Helping people get unstuck, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you've been listening to our podcast or following us on socials, it's probably no surprise to you that I've been dealing with back issues for many years. And I want to take a moment just to tell you about something that I found that's helped me with my flexibility and durability and mobility. And that's called Kokoro Yoga, somatic warrior training. It's not just yoga. It also includes Tai Chi, Qigong, visualization, meditation, and breathwork practices such as Fit Warrior, Fighting Warrior, which incorporates functional fitness and some martial arts movements. And it's been just a really great way for me to maintain some flexibility and durability as I move through our challenges when we go and do Spartan races and climb mountains. So if this sounds like it's something that could help you out, check it out. The link's in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that, and also, like you said, creating that safe space for someone to be able to let things out, let things go. And then as a coach, we have that non-attachment, non-judgment vision of this person, or view, I should say, perspective, where we're able to maybe pick up on patterns, or even in the language people use, we can pick up on things and help ask directed questions for you to reshape your world internally. And then thinking about the mentor, it's almost directed kind of a funnel towards one, I guess, experience, or one overarching topic. But
yes.
Yeah, so important to have that non-judgmental space and just be honest with somebody. Being able to have that is so important. Can change so much.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, one of the things you mentioned earlier. So I work with NAMI Howard County, right, the National Alliance of Mental Illness, and we recently started a veterans support group, right? And our veteran support group, we meet the first Monday of every month, from 6 to 7:30, and it's a free peer-to-peer support group for active duty and veterans who are living with mental illness. But to your point is, you can observe, right? Because as a trained coach, you can observe the people that sit in the support group. Right? We're called facilitators that run the meeting, right? We facilitate the meeting, but we very much are like coaches because we really just ask questions, right? At least from my perspective, when I'm sitting in the group. But you can see the other people that are in the group who try to take on this mentor role because they just talk about their experiences. And then you can see the other people in the group who may have a background doing something else. So it's a very interesting dynamic you get in this peer support group, because everyone wants to help, but some people want to help, like you were saying, Casey, from the mentor side, where they just want to shove their experience down your throat. And you're like, no, we need to ask questions, because there's a lot more to it than what we can see initially, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, getting back, or staying on this topic of escape velocity and veterans separating from the military and the coaching work you do around that and support work, what are some of the obstacles service members face when they're separating?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. And this is another reason why I started, or I'm really running with Escape Velocity, is the military program for transition. It's actually a pretty good program, right? So they give you 24 months to begin the process. Some commands don't allow their service members to start at 24 months, but that's not really the point. But they do a great job of providing resources for resume writing, interview skills, how to wear a suit, like all these things that will help you find a job, right? Which are great things. They help you build a LinkedIn profile and all these things that are great. But what's lacking is there's very little focus on what we say the socio-psychological side of transition, of separation.
Yeah.
There is very little focus on, here is how you discover your new purpose, if we want to say that, or here is how you find a new network of friends once you leave the service. Here is how you really identify your new, I'll call it, identity, right? Because now you've taken off the uniform. You're no longer Sergeant so-and-so or Captain or Colonel so-and-so. How you shed that and move forward. There's very little discussion of that. And that's why from escape velocity, we wanted to fill that hole, right? That bridge, that gap. And that's why the focus is not until after you separate. I like to look 5 months and beyond separation, because what we see is all of the programs are designed so that if you have a job on the day you separate, that's mission success for the military, right? You walked away for a job with a job. We don't care if you quit that job after 2 weeks because it wasn't the right job for you, right? We did our job. Our hands are clean. But now what happens on that backside is the programs, the resources, they're not really there anymore. So that's what we're saying, hey, we want to create this community where you can come in and talk to people, discover what are these limiting beliefs, or what are these barriers, what are these obstacles. And a lot of time, the transition program, they have this thing called an MOS crosswalk gap analysis, right? And what they do is they run you through this like a survey, and they say, okay, these are all the things you did while you were in the military, and this is the job that you want when you get out. And you're like, well, that's not necessarily true. Like, they never say, hey, here are all, let's look at your strengths. Let's do a strengths audit, right? Which is what we do in the FRC. We do it at Escape Velocity. We sit down and you do a strengths audit, and you say, these are all your strengths here. Let's kind of look at those, right? Let's play with curiosity, right? We always go back to curiosity. And then we figure out some other areas where you may be interested in going a different route. Even for me right now, I spent 20 plus years in the defense industry, in the, if you want to look at the technical side of DOD. And I'm like, no, man, I don't want anything to do with that. Now, what you face is fear, right? Because the money's good, the jobs are there, and the jobs are good jobs. So you have friends, you have family, you have former teammates that are like, why aren't you working there? Why don't you get a job there? Why aren't you doing this? And it's like, right. So what do? I call it the fear of practicality. People are like, okay, I'll take this job here. They're not happy. They have, they're going home angry. They have very little friends, and they don't even want to be there. But it's this fear of practicality because the service is saying, here are your skills from your job, and these are one of the jobs that you need to have. And oh, by the way, we're going to keep sending you emails from all of these companies that are looking to hire, right? And it's like, you don't have to do that. It's going to take a little more work, right? You may have to change some of your lifestyle habits for a while. You may have to talk to your family and friends, and they may not support your decision, but that's what the coaching program is about, is to help you continue to navigate towards where you truly want to be, towards that second mountain.
Yeah. So what I think we're talking about here is the military side is more about developing horizontal skill sets, new skills, but horizontal. And what you're doing is talking about developing vertical skills, changing your thinking, upgrading your mental models. And that's powerful. That is, the horizontal skills are necessary, but that's not where the growth is.
No,
at least in my experience.
No, absolutely. I think that's a great way to frame it, right? Is because that's essentially what happens. They say, you've been doing X, continue to do X. And the problem is, one of my phrases I use, because I'm an Army person, I say, you go from being an A at Army to being a C at civilian, right? And now you've created this gap, and you're not happy because you're used to being the best of the best, right? To getting promotions, to getting rewards, to getting accommodations. And now you're just average Joe performer in your cubicle, right? Where's the joy in that? But you've never gained that new skill set, right? It's always been, this is what I've done, and now I'm just going to move here. They said I'm great at doing this. And the reality is it's not that easy, for a lot of people.
Right. Yeah. Not easy. And that's important for people to understand, but can be well worth it, right? It's just like going through basic training, going through your MOS training. It isn't necessarily easy, but on the other side of that training is what you're going for, is the success, is the gratification. So if you equate that, as a veteran, it makes more sense as to why you're going to engage in vertical development training and coaching.
And having that tool to, you mentioned breathing earlier, but being able to quiet your mind enough to kind of filter through what's going on, not only in your head, but in your body. I mean, that in itself can change so much for people. But do you find, I don't know if you've done a lot of work with people outside the military, coaching wise, but do you think that's more difficult for someone coming from a military background? Is there more social expectation as far as what role they play or how they're supposed to see themselves?
I don't know. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because when I look at this really holistically, right? When I look at breath work as part of the inspiration part of our model at Escape Velocity, I talk about I say we operate at the edge of burnout, right? So for that military population is your run, go, run, go, right? And those things like, and this is changing a little bit. So, but when you look at like sleep, nutrition, hydration, breath work, and just and stopping to mindfulness, right? All these things, they're not high on the list of what you're right of what you're really looking at. So when you step out of this population and you realize some of the techniques that other people that they're using, right, that are so beneficial towards productivity, towards happiness, towards longevity, you question why we're not doing those things in the military, Yeah. So I find that the people that can make that transition though, and start to integrate those things into their life, they're better off, right? Because no one's leaving the military 100% physically and mentally the way they were when they walked in, right? Whether it's injuries, mental illness related things, we need all of the techniques that we can get our hands on to help us feel our best and perform our best. So that's why, as I've been reading through mental fitness, and we talk about, the brain heart gut connection, and we're talking about all these things. I'm like, man, we really need more of this in the veteran community. And what's unfortunate, one thing that's unfortunate that I've seen in the veteran community is that when you leave, you get this disability rating, right? And a lot of people are focused on increasing that disability rating, right? The closer I can get to 100%, or the people that already have 100%, they're like, well, I don't have to do anything anymore in life because I'm 100% disabled. And you're like, no, man, like you should be trying to, right, live the best life you can. So eat better, sleep better, breathe better, find moments that you can, have quiet and just breathe and go outside and for the fresh air. But it's not like that in the veteran community. And I don't know why. I don't know why they accept this disability rating as like a death now, right?
Yeah,
like, I'm 100% disabled, so I'm not working out anymore. And you're like, what?
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a great question. Yeah. I guess there could be a stigma attached to it, or maybe stigma is not the right word, but a mindset that goes along with being told that you're disabled, which I found that for a lot of veterans that I know who have a rating, it's just not true, right? They get out there and they engage in their lives with gusto, with excitement. They try new things, they get curious, and it's not holding them back from becoming the best person, the next version of themselves. So I guess my viewpoint there is, we're closing out one mission when we separate from the military, and we're starting a whole new mission in life. So if you frame it in terms that you're familiar with or maybe comfortable to you in the beginning, it makes that switch, that mindset switch, just a little bit less difficult. This episode of Fierce Planet Adventures podcast is brought to you by 5 Mountain Coaching, licensed unbeatable mind coaching, integrated accelerated vertical growth across 5 domains of cutting-edge development designed by retired Navy SEAL Commander Mark Devine. Learn the big 4 skills of mental toughness and resiliency. Discover the 6 pillars of performance. Test your mettle with custom created crucibles across all 5 domains. Visit 5mountaincoaching.com to schedule your free 1-hour unbeatable mind coaching session. That's the number 5, mountaincoaching.com. Begin your journey to becoming unbeatable today.
No, I agree with you. And I look at it as I kind of think about it, I look at it like if you watch, let's say, professional sports, right? And you see a professional athlete have a devastating injury, right? And they're like, oh, they're done. They're never playing again. What's the story you hear? You hear about this athlete trying their best to get back to that level that they were.
Yeah.
But when I look at tactical athletes, right, because that's what we consider ourselves as military, active duty, and veteran. When you look at a tactical athlete, you have a large percentage of this population that gets injured or is diagnosed as injured or given a disability rating. And instead of saying, I'm going to prove the system wrong, I'm going to get into the best shape I can, it's like, whoa, VA says I'm disabled, so I'm not going to go mow the lawn today because the VA says I'm disabled. And you're like,
yeah.
Oh man, and I'm not saying that to be, to be malicious towards the veteran population, because some people are like, bullshit, whatever. And I get it, right? It's not for everybody. But people ask me, all the time about all the things that I try to do. And I'm like, I think if I stop doing things and give it, it's like the mental thing, right? Like you said, the mindset, when you continuously tell yourself that you're broken, then your body is going to manifest those injuries that your mind is telling you that you're telling your mind that you have. You're speaking it into the universe, right?
So, yeah. Where the mind goes, the body follows.
Absolutely. Yep.
Beautiful. So I want to transition a little bit here and talk about Play Obsession and the All In Foundation. Can you tell us, give us a little bit of background? What is that about?
Yeah, so Work Play Obsession, All In Foundation. I started maybe about two years ago. We're going on a second year. It's a very, very, I say it's an infant nonprofit organization, right? So I started out just doing like as an unaffiliated organization, just showing up at nonprofit events or holding small events or doing coat drives or hat drives for homeless veterans or donating materials to veteran shelters. And then I lost two teammates, two friends to suicide within like 40 days of each other. And I decided at that point, I was like, well, I had a lot of people who were offering donations prior to this. And they were like, oh, if you were an affiliated nonprofit, we'd be able to, we'd donate money to your cause. So then after these, the tragic events, I was like, okay, I'm going to get fully affiliated as a nonprofit organization. That way, if people do want to donate, they can donate to the All In Foundation. It's the All In Foundation because you do not have to be diagnosed as ill, injured, or wounded. We know there are a lot of programs where if you're not diagnosed as ill, injured, or wounded, they will not render you services or allow you to participate in their programs. But our whole point is to create community. So we're like, hey, active duty, veterans, military families, all in. We're all in, all are welcome. Because what we see is the spouses and the children, the dependents are often overlooked, right? And the caregivers, are critical resource for the service member who is living with the mental illness, right? I've heard children say, they think their dad's going to kill himself because he's crazy and he has PTSD because he heard that his parent has post-traumatic stress disorder. And what we try to do is bring people into an event, into a community, and let everyone observe that they're not crazy, right? Or just normal everyday people as well, that we have episodes. And we like to use these events also as anchor points so that you can always refer someone back to an event that was a good day. Remember that time we were doing X, remember that time we were all together. So now you create these anchor points throughout the year that you can always refer back to and say, let's get back to that moment. Or how do we get back to that feeling on that day? Or maybe we do this event again as a family or as friends. So that's where it got started. Unfortunately, due to COVID, what we ended up doing is shifting all of our focus to NAMI Howard County, right? As Howard County resident, I spent a lot of time I love NAMI Howard County. First of all, I love Howard County, Maryland. We have a phenomenal veterans and military family program here, system, because it's more than one program, community. It's phenomenal. So we shifted our focus to NAMI Howard County. Now now we have this new variant that's out there, but now that COVID's kind of, doing whatever it's doing right now, we're looking at getting back into our programs so that we can build this community again, bring people together again, and really have veterans and civilians together. Because if we consistently refer back to a stigma, or if we consistently say they don't understand us, but we have to create an opportunity in an environment where everyone can understand each other. And then that's how we move forward, right? Fellowship is what keeps us alive.
So much to learn from each other too.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned was supporting the caregiver, getting the caregiver involved, paraphrasing, but that's a crucial part, I think, because so often the caregiver, the family member, is the one who takes the brunt of the situations where, we're having a bad day, right? And things aren't going well. And, maybe we act out emotionally. They so often bear the brunt of that. So, do you have caregivers that often come to these events?
Absolutely. We're fortunate that when we have events, we run the entire spectrum: active duty, veterans, dependents, people that have never served before. We've had interesting stories. We've had some children, adults, bring their parents in, right? So who had served years ago. And I've had people come up to me afterward and say, I have never seen my mom or dad or uncle or whatever engage this much with people. I've heard stories tonight that I've never heard him or her tell before. And it's just because they get into that environment with people and the trust is there, right? Because you have this shared experience and they just feel it, right? They just feel the energy and they allow themselves to be vulnerable in this environment, and they're like, I can't believe it, and the thing is like, well, how do we do this more often? How do we create these community events and get the word out there so we can do it more than once a quarter or whatever the case may be?
Beautiful.
So I've lived it too, right? Where, we get so focused down and in on ourselves and we think that, we're these, you start to believe you start to drink the Kool-Aid, right? Where you're this great superhero doing so much for the country, right? That you're like, it's me. And you lose sight of everyone else's contribution that's there supporting you. And that's where the caregiver is overlooked so often, and so you're right. It's something that we consistently try to bring to light, and I think it was, we're almost at December right now. So we're just closing out the month of the caregivers. So, yeah.
Beautiful. I'm going to switch topics again, just a little bit here. It's all part and parcel of everything we're talking about, but mental fitness is a hot topic. It's kind of a buzzword in the industry right now. To you, what does mental fitness mean?
Yeah.
What does it mean to be mentally fit?
Wow. I think it's, we draw this comparison to physical fitness, right? So to me, it means a consistent, right? I'll say strategy, I'll say program or effort to continuously improve across all domains, right? Because we talked about sleep, hydration, nutrition, breath work, all these things, the integration of all these things into our daily routine, right? And really, it's hard for me because it's not a direct answer for me, right? Because it's a combination of so many things. It's the ability to listen, right? Non-judgmentally, because you have to have that wherewithal to be able to do that, right? It's about self-awareness, right? Self-awareness is so important. So it's all of these things combined, right? I wish I could bottle it up into one sentence, but I'm also very much a babe in the mental fitness, community, I think, and learning, right? So I'm exploring this as well. If you ask me in 10 years, I may have it bottled up into one sentence, but for me right now, it's just this really broad spectrum of things that we're trying to bring together to improve our overall quality of life.
Yeah, nicely said. In my experience, mental fitness means different things to different people. There are some pillars that I think are consistent, and those might include, well, a lot of the things that you're doing right now with Escape Velocity and the support mechanisms that you offer and provide. Breath work, nutrition. We work with folks, and one of the things we say is mental fitness starts in your body. So it could be breath work, visualization, meditation, somatic movement practices, community involvement, groups where, just like the group that you just discussed, people coming together for community purposes and supporting each other. So I guess, my thought is there's just no one specific direct answer that's going to encompass everybody, but there are certain pillars throughout that are consistent. So thank you for sharing that. And I think that as we learn more through science, that, the stuff that we're using, the techniques and tools that you're using and that we're using with our clients, these are foundational to mental fitness. So thank you for being a beacon out there and helping the veterans move along.
No, I appreciate it. And I agree with you 100%, right? We talked about before, personality doesn't scale. And when we look at these foundations, like you were saying, that's where our 5 pillars are, right? It's like, hey, we can't capture everything, but if we have a strong foundation, we say intelligence and lifelong learning, right? That means consistently reading, consistently engaging in challenging conversations, not thinking that your opinion is the only opinion that's correct, right? So this is all encapsulated in intelligence. So we look at inspiration. We talk about the importance of breath work and grounding and presence and taking those moments. We look at investing in ourselves so that we can invest in others. That's hydration, nutrition, sleep, right? We look at intrinsic motivation. Obviously, we look at autotelic experiences and all the things that drive us towards these eulogy virtues. And then interpersonal relatedness is having a strong social network, that peak performance network, being surrounded by only good people who are all striving towards service to community. These are foundational towards, mental fitness, right?
Yeah.
And that's why when we say it's hard to put it in one sentence, we have these pillars that say, hey, if we work on all of these things, we're going to be able to address pretty much any challenge that we face in life with these tools that we have,
Right.
Well said.
Building that strong, resilient foundation.
Yes.
Build on positivity.
Yep. That's what it is.
Awesome. That is
Nice.
fantastic and so well needed in the world right now. Where can folks find out more about what you're doing and learn more about some of the resources you're providing?
Yeah, for sure. So my favorite place to hang out is Instagram right now. It's the Escape Velocity Coach. So that's with an underscore between every word, the Escape Velocity Coach on Instagram. That's definitely my favorite place to hang out. The website is escapevelocityacademy.com. Where else? Workplayobsession.com for the All In Foundation. We are there. Have a podcast, Escape Velocity Podcast, which I do every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, something like that. And sometimes I rebroadcast podcasts that I'm on there just to help spread them. And then, of course, NAMI Howard County. So that's a big one for any veterans that are listening that want to come to the peer support group. We are the first Monday of every month from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. It's open to everyone because we're virtual, so you don't have to live in Howard County. NAMIHowardCounty.org is where the registration link is. There's no, all you have to do is be active duty or a veteran. Doesn't matter if you were Korean War, Iraq War, Afghanistan. We don't separate any of that. Or even if you didn't go to combat, you've served, you're welcome. So those are all the places where I am regularly.
Yes. Fantastic. And we'll have some links in all the show notes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it
as well.
Yeah.
Topaz, thank you for all that you do to support veterans and for promoting mental fitness and vertical development. What you do is so vital and necessary in our world today. So again, thank you for joining us and sharing your message.
No, thank you very much. I'm just hoping that, we can make mental fitness as popular as physical fitness, we can get some big names out there. We know how much, when Arnold Schwarzenegger came out and started pumping physical fitness, how such a phenomenon and a trend that became. We need our advocate out there that's doing the same thing for mental fitness, because that's what we need right now. We've seen what the COVID pandemic has done with depression and anxiety, and how it's affected millions and millions of people around the world. So it's an important cause.
Amen. All right. Be well, sir.
No, thank you very much. Thank you guys for having me.
Friends, if you found the Fierce Planet Adventures podcast helpful, please consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. It helps others find our podcast.
If you screenshot your review and tag us on Instagram, we'll send you a classic Fierce Planet Adventures sticker. For your water bottle, cooler, car, send us a direct message with your mailing address on Instagram, and we'll send you that sticker right out.
Thanks for joining us, and live fiercely.